Story 1. I wouldn't say it's completely normal, but I know a surprising number of guys who were randomly attacked by strangers, myself included, where a car stopped and a group of guys jumped out, ran over, and sucker punched me. I got a concussion and some broken teeth from it. I got off easy, though. One guy I worked with had the same thing happen and came to with a broken back. He ended up getting an infection in his spine that made him impotent, and the antibiotics to fight it made him allergic to everything except for meat. He ended up committing suicide a few years back. Story 2. I know two guys who were offered oral sex by random strangers, men, when they were walking alone at night. One of them accepted. That's all. Two separate events. They weren't walking together. Story 3. The insults, put-downs, bickering, and mocking that occur in some male circles but still end up with everyone laughing and still being friends. Story 4. In my 50-plus years on Earth, I have never seen another person's private part in a public restroom. I don't know if women think our natural state reaches out farther than it does, but urinals are pretty discreet. Story 5. That some women are just as stressful to date as some men. Even though men may do inappropriate things more often, women aren't exempt from doing those things either. I remember seeing a transgender man in tears on TikTok because as soon as he transitioned, he started to see how people treated him differently. They were far less kind to him, and women were much colder toward him than when he was a woman. He said he understood why, as he used to be a woman and had those same reactions to stay safe, but he admitted how emotionally hurtful it was to be treated like a monster without people getting to know you, which caused him to get upset. As a man all my life, it becomes second nature to just deal with it. It sucks, but you learn to deal with the fact that because of bad men out there, people will be suspicious of you until you prove otherwise. It doesn't stop being a horrible thing to deal with. Also, I keep mentioning her, but Nora Vincent did an experiment where she lived life as a man for a year. She passed extremely well as a man and came out of it with more understanding of men's point of view and admitted that in some areas, she actually prefers being a woman. I'm not here to say who has it worse. Anyone with a brain knows that women tend to have the worst end of the stick, but I think it would shock women how much more difficult a man's life is than they may think, and be shocked by how many men just deal with it. Some men sadly don't deal with it and end up ending their lives, which is sad, or turn to substance abuse to cope, which is also sad. Story 6. The lack of attention and validation men get for doing things that are either considered normal or just expected. So it usually comes as a full surprise to men when they get recognition and appreciation for things they do daily that are wholly taken for granted by others. Story 7. I have 2 points. The first one is a general lack of assistance for you, coupled with the expectation of assistance from you. I once had to carry a 20-pound bag of charcoal from the store to a bus to my house. Not including the bus ride time, I was carrying this 20-pound bag on my shoulder for about 30 minutes and was visibly struggling at certain points. I passed several people. No one offered to help me carry the bag. Everyone asked when and where the barbecue was. They were all joking and I wasn't mad. But I think it's a good illustration. A lot of being a man is being seen almost entirely for what you do or can do for others and how little you need from others. The second point is that everyone assumes you are completely clueless about how to be a good partner or spouse. I've been with my wife for nearly 10 years. I have been, by her description, the best man she has ever been with. No cheating. Emotionally and financially stable. Supportive. Flexible but not a pushover. But throughout the relationship, people assumed I was doing something wrong. I met some relatives of hers before we got married who did the whole, "So what are your intentions with my cousin, sister, niece?" thing when we had been together for 5 years. On our wedding day, I got stopped by no less than 20 separate people who all had all sorts of demands for how I could be a good man. It got so bad that, at a point, I had to actively ignore anyone that I didn't invite or meet prior to the wedding. I asked my wife if anyone had ever given her any advice in regard to how to be a better partner for me. No one really had. The takeaway I got was that people assume men are unable to maintain a relationship and need to be lectured on the subject while women are assumed to be naturally good at it. Ironically, my wife was the one who needed the advice because she feels that she, again by her own admission, has had much more of a learning curve when it comes to being a good wife than I did for being a good husband. Story 8. Pararesis. I'd like to meet the person who decided urinal dividers should only go shoulder high and make them try to pee in my shoes. That didn't come out right. Story 9. I don't know if I speak for all men, but I'm learning that a lot of us have had unwanted sexual contact from women but literally don't think about it because, in our minds, it's just not that big a deal. I was at a bar with my wife and our friend and went outside for a smoke. My friend got to talking with the group. I was standing just off from them, and one of the women decided to talk to me. She asked if the friend was my girlfriend, and I said no, but told her my wife was inside. She then randomly showed me her nude photos. She was not remotely attractive. I have also been groped a few times. I have never considered it assault because I think of it more as just a weird thing that happened and not something traumatizing. Story 10. My husband told me about the unspoken rule of leaving one urinal space between guys. When I heard about this, I couldn't stop laughing. You would literally skip perfectly good urinals just to avoid standing next to another person? The complexity of male bathroom etiquette is fascinating. Story 11. I'm a transgender man, so I've been on both sides and can 100% say women truly do not understand how little men talk to each other. Women tend to be friendly to each other, even with women they don't know. Men generally aren't. If I smile at a random guy I walk past in public, there's a chance I could get punched. And when it comes to friends, even close ones, we really don't know about the drama going on in their life like women do. I could be best mates with a guy and know literally nothing about him, maybe not even his actual name. So when your man tells you he doesn't know why his mate and his girlfriend broke up, he legitimately doesn't and he probably will never know. Story 12. Men normally throw insults at each other. Bring them into a bar, give them drinks, have a laugh, and the next thing you know, verbal spats are everywhere. Fists might get included if it intensifies. They may have a misunderstanding but act like nothing happened the next day. Just pat each other on the back, nod, and go on with their day. Girls, after a week of misunderstanding, might say, "We're not done yet." Story 13. Talking with the boys about which lady you find pretty and then forgetting all of the answers the other people in the group gave as soon as the topic changes to beer, soccer, or politics is absolutely normal and not a sign of dementia. Story 14. I'm going to answer for my husband who doesn't have Reddit. Hanging out with other guys for hours and not learning anything personal about them. I'm confused. You talked about what for 4 hours? Or his friend telling him his wife is cheating on him, and he doesn't ask any follow-up questions. I want to see pictures, names, where they met, and how they found out. Story 15. People often say the craziest things that I've never dealt with or that apply to women in some way. In general, we all live on Earth, so your title doesn't make much sense to me. It's not like we're segregated by gender. I guess something that a lot of men find normal is casually accepting bodily harm. Women do it too, but there's a reason men are dying more often. Men will straight up ignore the symptoms of a heart attack, fully aware that it could be one. I've seen my grandfathers and father ignore cancer, broken bones, mild cuts, dislocations, crippling back pain, and so on. They generally accept it as part of life, and I find it abhorrent how common it is for men to ignore or shake off these things. Women deal with this too, but to a lesser extent. Also, how normal it is to do absolutely stupid things, not just ignoring injuries, but actively doing things that will definitely cause injuries for no reason other than, I don't know, men. Like, there's a reason why most drowning victims are men. It's not just that they take more risks. It's that they overestimate their ability to survive. They'll see a lake and think, yeah, I bet I could swim across that, despite not having swum in years, and suddenly they're halfway across, exhausted, and realizing they made a mistake. Then there are the brainless stunts that are just accepted as part of male culture. I've personally seen guys charge at each other at full speed while inside giant trash bins, fully colliding, getting flung onto the ground, and just laughing about it. For no reason. No money, no challenge, no bet, just because. I don't think most women fully understand just how horrifying the lack of regard most men have for their own physical safety truly is. It is completely normal to get drunk with friends, go swimming without life jackets, and ignore the weather forecast. It is completely normal to say, she'll be right, and continue doing something while in pain. It's normalized that men do stupid things. Story 16. Being able to accept and dish out offensive humor while also acknowledging its roots. but not getting upset or offended by it. Going years without compliments from anyone. Some may go decades without a woman complimenting them about their physical appearance. Being abused or sexually assaulted and shrugging it off because we don't even acknowledge what just happened. Being told your entire life that you are the problem and you just kind of have to accept it blindly, because pushing back on the popular narrative labels you as the misogynistic person. The fear of being labeled a creep or pedophile for simply existing near children in public spaces. Story 17. Being a man is also challenging on multiple different levels. A lot of women think there's this secret club with free gin and foot massages, but manhood has a huge number of problems and struggles. We all know about toxic masculinity, but that's not a blanket excuse for everything. A lot of it comes down to toxic femininity, which also exists but seems to be viewed like a mythical creature. Story 18. It is on you. If you have a girlfriend, a wife, or if you are alone, it does not matter. It is on you. Need to move, fix a car, make more money, figure out your entire life. It is completely on you. Story 19. The amount of testosterone that we have to deal with. I've seen women transitioning to men describe what it's like for the first time, and it's hilarious. Story 20. Recently watched a video of a person saying that he catches his poop in tissue, then puts it in the water. I don't know how widespread this is, so let's find out. I'm on team no touching the poop. Story 21. My girlfriend was genuinely shocked yesterday when I said that yes, most guys at least occasionally have masturbated sitting at their home office desk. At least certainly before smartphones. The concept of masturbating sitting up in a desk chair just didn't compute with her. Story 22. My buddy and I were horsing around in middle school, and it turned into a fistfight. We sat in the principal's office, making up a story and laughing so we wouldn't get in trouble. We're still friends. Story 23. Every woman in my girlfriend's family lost their minds when I told them most guys put their junk under the toilet seat during poops, not just letting the penis sit on the toilet seat. Story 24. My wife thinks it's weird as heck that the guy in the cubicle next to me and I have worked together for 24 years, and our normal conversations week in and week out are, hey, hey. In fact, the most we've ever said to one another was when his daughter was in the Navy and my son was in the Marines. That conversation was about 15 minutes long. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. Story 25. Talking with different female friends, when they are on dating apps, they will get hundreds of likes to the point of only looking through the likes and not even having to swipe. As a guy, we will go days to weeks without receiving a like or a return like unless it's a bot. Haha. Story 26. Your value is attached to your status, income, and ability to provide. As a young man, it is incredibly challenging to have value in the social marketplace for the average guy. Story 27. The threat of violence is extremely high if you get into a confrontation with someone. I always think about situations like road rage incidents, encounters at a bar, or even just walking on the street. Yelling at someone can be an invitation to fight or risk getting stabbed. Whereas with women, if they get into confrontations, it's much more likely not to escalate beyond yelling. Sometimes I see videos of women screaming at someone, and I think there's no way a man could scream like that and not expect to be violently assaulted. Story 28. How sexually violent and casual the conversations shared between the guys I grew up with in the 1980s and 1990s were. I grew up in Philadelphia in the 1980s and 1990s. The age ranges of the people were 12 to 18, so men is perhaps not the best descriptor and thus perhaps not the right fit for the original question. I'm glad the other people responding to this question are vouching for very different experiences. This is one case where I am extremely happy to be an outlier. Please know I'm not lying. This isn't fake news. I'm not a fake account. This wasn't or isn't my attempt at rage baiting, and I'm coming from a genuine place of sharing my experience as a guy.